Okay, so you want to own a timeshare resort. Build one luxury condo near Orlando. Sell the right to use it again and again. Finance the buyers. Charge annual maintenance fees. Manage the resort. Rent unused nights. And if somebody stops paying, you may eventually recover the ownership interest and sell it again. Sounds like the perfect real estate machine. But here's the question that explains the entire industry. If the product is so valuable, why do some owners later pay thousands of dollars just to escape it? Do not answer yet. Because before we reach the exit, we need to understand what was actually sold in the first place. A timeshare is not quite a hotel room. It is not quite a vacation home. And it is definitely not the simple slice of beachfront real estate many buyers imagine when the presentation begins. The customer usually buys a vacation ownership interest. That might be a deeded interest in real estate, a right-to-use contract, a membership in a trust, or points that can be exchanged for stays across a network of resorts. The old image was simple: one family, one resort. The same week every year. Modern systems are more flexible. Buy points. Choose from several properties. Stay for 3 nights here, 7 nights there, maybe exchange into a cruise, another resort network, or a hotel loyalty program. The customer buys access, the developer sells flexibility, and the calendar becomes inventory. That is the first strange thing about the business. A normal home is sold once. A hotel room is rented one night at a time. A timeshare developer sells long-term vacation rights connected to the same resort inventory to many households. The concrete remains in one place. The future vacations are divided into products, and those products can produce revenue for decades. Before one contract is signed, though, the developer needs a resort: land, construction, pools, restaurants, landscaping, parking, furniture, kitchens, laundry, fitness centers, front desks, reservation systems, sales centers, model villas with towels folded by people who have never seen an actual family use a bathroom. The property has to feel aspirational, not merely comfortable. The buyer is not purchasing tonight's sleep. They are purchasing a version of their future family life. Annual vacations, grandchildren at the pool, Christmas in Hawaii, a tradition that supposedly becomes more valuable because everyone will definitely have the same schedule 10 years from now. The product is emotional before it becomes financial. That matters because timeshare is rarely sold through a normal real estate listing. It is sold through a presentation. A couple receives discounted theme park tickets, a hotel stay, a gift card, breakfast, or another incentive. In exchange, they attend what may be described as a 90-minute sales presentation. The phrase 90 minutes has achieved legendary status in the industry. Sometimes the clock agrees. Sometimes it develops vacation ownership of its own. The presentation begins with travel. Where do you want to go? How often do you vacation? What are hotels going to cost over the next 20 years? Would you rather give that money to hotel companies or own your vacations? The salesperson converts future hotel spending into one large number. Then the timeshare price is placed beside it. Suddenly, buying points can look like saving money. But here is the next open question. If the product sells itself through obvious long-term savings, why does the company need expensive gifts, tours, commissions, and a room full of closers to sell it? Because the customer is not only comparing numbers, they are making a large, complicated purchase while on vacation, often after seeing a beautiful property and imagining future trips. The company needs urgency, a discount available today, bonus points, a better package, an upgraded ownership level. A supervisor who somehow discovered one final opportunity after the salesperson briefly left the room. Sales and marketing are not side costs. They are central to the business. A resort can be beautiful and still fail if the developer cannot generate tours and close contracts. The product may last for decades. The buying decision can happen in an afternoon. That gap creates profit. It also creates cancellations. Most states provide a rescission period, a short cooling-off window when the buyer can cancel according to the contract and state law. The exact period varies. That is why the sign date matters, the delivery date matters, the mailing method matters, and why the buyer who wakes up 3 days later feeling different should read the cancellation instructions before reading 17 online reviews written in capital letters. Now close the first mini loop. Why spend so much to sell an allegedly obvious bargain? Because vacation ownership is not simply found. It is manufactured as a decision. The resort creates desire. The presentation creates urgency. The contract converts both into revenue. Now we reach the first major revenue stream, the sale of vacation ownership interests. In 2025, Marriott Vacations Worldwide reported roughly $1.8 billion in total contract sales. Its vacation ownership business served around 700,000 owner families across 120 resorts. This is not a niche corner of tourism. It is a large consumer real estate and hospitality system, but the sale price is only the beginning. Many buyers do not pay cash. The developer finances the purchase, and that opens the next loop. If the company already earns money selling vacation ownership, why lend the buyer the money too? Because financing can increase the number of people able to buy. It also creates interest income. Marriott Vacations reported about $2.5 billion of originated vacation ownership notes receivable, net of reserves, at the end of 2025. The weighted average stated interest rate was approximately 12.9%. Hilton Grand Vacations reported originated timeshare financing receivables with a weighted average interest rate around 14.5% in early 2026, with individual rates reaching into the 20s. Now the resort company looks less like a hotel operator. It looks like a consumer finance company with swimming pools. The buyer receives the vacation product today. The company receives principal and interest over years. Then the company can bundle eligible loans into securitizations, use them as collateral, and borrow against future customer payments. The vacation presentation produces a contract. The contract produces a loan. The loan becomes a financial asset. The asset can support another layer of financing. Somewhere between the pool bar and Wall Street, the complimentary breakfast became asset-backed securities. That closes the financing loop. The developer lends because financing expands sales and produces interest. But it creates a new problem: defaults. A buyer may love the resort and still stop paying. Job loss, divorce, medical bills, a change in travel habits, a loan that no longer fits the household budget. Marriott Vacations carried a reserve of more than $500 million against originated vacation ownership notes receivable at the end of 2025. The company estimated an average remaining default rate above 13%. Hilton Grand Vacations also reported large allowances against its originated and acquired timeshare financing portfolios. High interest is not free profit. It is partly compensation for the fact that some buyers will not finish paying. Now ask the obvious question: what happens to the timeshare after default? Depending on the product and local law, the developer may foreclose, accept a deed in lieu, revoke the right to use interest, or otherwise recover the inventory. The unpaid loan is written off against reserves. The vacation ownership interest comes back. Then the company may sell it again. That sounds almost magical. Sell the same underlying vacation right, finance it, collect payments, recover it after default, resell it. But the process is not painless. The company loses expected principal and interest, legal and servicing costs appear, recovered inventory must be marketed again, and a product returning through default may say something uncomfortable about the original sale. Still, the asset is not a destroyed car. The resort unit remains. The calendar can be repackaged. The vacation is still waiting for another owner. Now open the next loop. If the developer can recover inventory, who pays to maintain the resort while all of this happens? The owners. Annual maintenance fees support housekeeping, repairs, insurance, taxes, landscaping, staffing, utilities, reserves, and refurbishment. The fees generally continue whether the owner uses the vacation or not. That is the point many buyers understand intellectually at the presentation, but feel emotionally years later. The loan can end. Maintenance fees may not. A person can finish paying for the timeshare and still receive an annual bill for as long as the ownership or membership remains active. Fees can rise as labor, insurance, energy, repairs, and property costs rise. Marriott Vacations warns investors that increasing maintenance fees can make the product less attractive, affect sales, and contribute to loan defaults. This creates a delicate relationship. The resort must remain beautiful enough to support the brand and future sales. That costs money. Owners must pay enough to maintain it. Raise fees too slowly and the property deteriorates. Raise them too quickly and the owners begin searching, how do I get out of this thing? That search creates an entire secondary economy, but not yet. First, consider resort management. A timeshare company may manage owners' associations and collect fees for operating the resort. It may earn club dues, reservation fees, exchange fees, transaction charges, rental income, and other service revenue. Marriott Vacations reported $633 million in resort management and other service revenue during 2025, plus $615 million from rentals and $360 million from financing. The initial sale creates the owner. The management system monetizes the relationship. The financing system monetizes the payment schedule. The exchange network monetizes flexibility. The rental system monetizes unused inventory. This is why the business is more powerful than simply selling pieces of a condominium. It builds an ecosystem around future vacations. The owner buys points, uses the reservation system, pays annual fees, maybe upgrades later, maybe finances the upgrade, maybe exchanges into another destination. The company does not need to find a completely new customer for every transaction. It can sell more vacation to someone who already owns vacation. Existing owners are valuable because they understand the system. They also already have a relationship with the salesperson who calls to explain that the current number of points is mysteriously not enough. That opens another loop. Why would an owner buy more if the original package was supposed to cover future vacations? Because families grow, travel habits change, point requirements vary, premium seasons cost more, larger villas cost more. Availability can be difficult at popular destinations, and once someone has already invested, adding points may feel easier than admitting the original purchase does not work as expected. This is the upgrade economy. The first purchase creates commitment. The next purchase promises to fix the limitations of the first. Sometimes it genuinely adds flexibility. Sometimes the owner discovers that the solution to owning too little timeshare was somehow buying more timeshare. The industry calls it an upgrade. Behavioral economics calls it an excellent Tuesday. Now return to the question we opened at the beginning. If the product is valuable, why do some owners pay to escape? Because the developer market and the resale market are not the same market. The original purchase includes the brand, presentation, financing, incentives, sales commissions, and the emotional experience of buying at the resort. A resale buyer sees a contract, annual fees, usage restrictions, and whatever benefits actually transfer. Some perks may not transfer. Some clubs restrict resale rights. The financing package disappears. The salesperson disappears. The buyer compares listings from owners who may be highly motivated to leave. That is not the environment that created the original price. The Federal Trade Commission warns consumers not to assume they will recover what they paid. That sentence is doing important work. A timeshare may deliver years of enjoyable vacations. It may still have weak resale value. Those two things can be true at once. A family can love the resort and lose money selling the ownership. It is a lifestyle product wearing real estate vocabulary. And now the market becomes strange. Some owners try to sell, others try to give the interest back. Some contact the developer's surrender or exit program. Some transfer it to family, some stop paying, and some hire a timeshare exit company. That brings us to the final loop. What could be more profitable than selling a timeshare? Promising to make it disappear. Exit companies advertise relief. They tell owners they can cancel contracts, eliminate maintenance fees, or transfer ownership. Some may provide legitimate legal or negotiation services. Others demand large upfront payments, tell owners to stop paying, and accomplish little. In 2022, the Federal Trade Commission and Wisconsin's Attorney General sued a group of timeshare exit businesses, alleging that they took more than $90 million from consumers, many of them older adults, while regularly failing to deliver the promised exits. Think about the full cycle. A customer pays thousands to buy vacation ownership, pays interest on the financing, pays annual maintenance fees, then may pay another company thousands to stop paying all the previous companies. The resort industry created vacation ownership. The exit industry monetized vacation regret. And scammers discovered that regret can be sold twice. That closes the main loop. Why do owners pay to escape something valuable? Because value is personal, but obligations are contractual. The vacation may still be beautiful. The owner may no longer travel. The resort may still be full. The annual fee may no longer fit. The points may still work. The family may not. A product designed for decades is being held by people whose lives change every year. Now imagine the optimistic version. You develop a resort in a destination with strong, durable demand. The property is beautiful. Sales tours convert efficiently. Buyers understand the product. Rescission rates remain manageable. The company finances qualified customers and controls defaults. Maintenance fees keep the resort in excellent condition. Owners use their points and remain satisfied. Existing owners buy upgrades. Rental operations monetize available inventory. Management and club fees create recurring revenue. The company securitizes receivables, recycles capital, and builds another resort. The customer vacations. The company earns from several stages of the relationship. That is the machine working correctly. Now the bad version. Construction costs rise. Sales require deeper incentives. Marketing costs increase. The company approves weaker borrowers. Defaults climb. Recovered inventory returns faster than it can be resold. Insurance and maintenance costs rise. Owners complain about availability. Annual fees increase. Resale listings multiply. Exit companies target the owner base. Regulators investigate sales practices or financing disclosures. The resort remains beautiful. The contracts around it become ugly. That is the timeshare trap. The company does not only need buyers, it needs future owners who continue paying, continue traveling, continue believing the system creates enough value, and do not all want the same week in Hawaii. So does owning a timeshare resort actually work? Yes. The largest operators generate billions in revenue and manage enormous owner networks. The model combines real estate, hospitality, consumer finance, subscription-like fees, exchange networks, rentals, and long-term customer relationships. Very few businesses can sell tomorrow's vacation, finance it for a decade, collect annual fees, manage the property, and potentially resell the interest after default. But that complexity cuts both ways. The owner is not purchasing a normal hotel stay. They are entering a system. The developer is not selling a normal home. It is selling participation in that system. And now we can answer the opening question. What is the company really selling? Not the villa. The villa stays where it is. Not the week. Modern owners may use points across many dates and destinations. The company is selling a long-term claim on future leisure, a promise that your future self will have time, money, health, compatible family schedules, and the desire to vacation through the same network year after year. That promise can create wonderful trips. It can also outlive the reason it was purchased. The resort owns the building. The customer owns the commitment. And the most valuable part of the business is not the room. It is every future year still written inside the contract.